Okay, everybody, we're 1 minute out, so if you don't have a drink, go get yourself one, and yeah.
Or 5.
Or 5.
It's a long hour.
Line them up. It's a super long hour. Talking about Legion.
We should just put a 5-minute timer and a set of shots up the front.
So who's carrying me home?
Well, the good news is you got a ride this time. Woohoo! Because it's raining.
I'm good to go then.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Jason, hit that button.
Yeah, it's my turn now. No, that's the cameras. Sorry.
Recording live from the Haley Sisters Memorial Studios, straight out of lovely Elmont, Ontario, it's time for This Death Clock Has 60 Minutes, your unofficial Warmahordes news broadcast. It's 8 p.m. Wednesday night, the beers are cold, the news is fresh, and the Death Clock starts now.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Death Clock. So tonight, our guest is the one and only Chris Orr. But before we get into that, we're going to be talking a bit about Legion tonight. We're going to go over some of the cool things that have happened in the last couple of weeks in the world of Legion. Before we get started with that, I would like to introduce my co-host, the guy to my left, your right, the one and only George Schweitzer. Yay!
Wow, I didn't know I was going to get an introduction like that.
Well, that's, I'm trying to up our game.
We have a game?
No.
Shit, I don't have any models.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Cool. So, George, you got to go to the pub this week. You got a game in.
I did.
How was it?
It was wonderful and horrible. I was playing a very disadvantaged game. I was
Careful, Alad's listening.
Good. Then he knows all about it. He played a troll beast brick with Doomy 3 into my anti-infantry list consisting of 3 models. It was what you would call a bad matchup. I figured my only way to win it was to engineer an assassination. I did absolutely everything correctly right up until the point where I forgot that I had done everything correctly and then boosted. And then he toughed on my last attack, and if I hadn't boosted, I would have had one more focus to kill him. And then everything, just continued its downward slide.
I heard Alad literally has a large box full of trolls. To make his list, he just shakes them up and pours them on the table.
Yeah,
and
that's
when his deployment.
No, that's not his deployment. That's how he makes a list.
Oh, that's how he makes the list.
His deployment involves him standing at the next table over and tossing them into the zone,
right?
And then just pushing them back with a stick.
There are pictures of this, folks.
Don't we call that the McWaters method?
We do. Jason.
Yeah.
To my right, everybody's left. The one and only Maelstrom, the guy watching the chat, making sure that you are entertained. Say hello, Jason.
With my pants on.
Hi,
Jason.
Your pants on.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. You got a game in. You and I got a game in this week. You also got a game in the pub.
2 games in.
Ooh, dang.
Yeah, buddy.
Well, I can talk about our game. Why don't you talk about the second game?
Okay. Do you want me to talk about that now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I played Dave Crosscurry, who is playing Thyron. Mm-hmm. And I dropped, who did I play?
Cold Grandma?
No, it wasn't Cold Grandma. Oh, I played,
it was a memorable game.
Jesus, who did I take with me that
Super memorable.
I took Berka and, Jesus, who was the other one?
Berka and whoever you played?
Yeah, I can't even remember. Come back to me.
Was it Madrak?
I can't remember.
No? Jason and I got a game, Child versus, God, what were you were playing? Was it Madrak?
No, it wasn't Madrak. It was Berka.
It was Berka. And I rolled forward, stomped you out of scenario so that round 2 you forgot you had an ambushing unit and you just gave in. You were like, I can't beat this. You're 3 points up, and I'm.
No,
like,
you were 4 points up.
I was 4 points up.
You went up to 4-0 on your turn,
and you couldn't.
And I was like, no, I'm done.
Yeah, you couldn't jam. You couldn't figure out how to jam me out of anything. So you just.
No,
you were like, screw it.
Turn 3, I'm already down 4 points. We're done, boys.
I felt pretty solid about it.
Of course you did. You shit.
Then you realized you had an ambushing unit of bears that you could just walk in and stop
I
me
forgot
from
about
winning.
them. I remember who I played. It was Calandra.
Yeah,
Calandra.
Calandra.
She tilts me so
with
hard.
her lovely fucking 18-inch bubble of Starcrossed.
Oh my
good.
God.
All right, let's go over to Chris Orr. Chris, what games did you get in this week? Anything exciting?
I've only played 1 game since the SOO. I got a game in against Corey Wierstra. It was actually a super fun game. It was Thags 1 versus Mordekar. He wanted to test the list out. It was super fun. It was a lot. It was a really cool game. The end of the game came down to I was trying out Kralix, and Kralix needed to kill 3 models to Swift Hunter 3 times to capture his flag in order to go to 5 CP, like a 5 CP differential. So it was a very fun game.
Sweet. We have a lot of news to go through in a very short period of time. We're going to try to keep this down to about 10 minutes because we could get lost in all kinds of stuff, particularly the CID things that came out today. So let's start that we've discovered the last man left on Earth that still has a Hotmail account, and that's Chris Orr. Hey! Stunned me when he sent me that. Oh, don't worry, my email address is such and such at hotmail.com. I'm like,
Hotmail, not live.
Not-
or
Not
like
live,
MSN.
not Outlook.
no,
It's Hotmail.
pretty good.
I think I've had that since high school.
I've got one of those around somewhere, but I'm not sure I would own up to it.
I don't even know if I know the login to my Hotmail account anymore.
Well, I think everybody has one in their closet somewhere, like a Hotmail account. I just
Their closet.
a
So
skeleton.
So the first thing that was probably the biggest deal over the last couple of weeks was 0-level casters, which is kind of a cool thing because one of the interesting things is by introducing the concept of a 0-level caster, it means that they can just literally go back in time on something and throw it out there. So George, off the top of your head, do you remember what the 4 different 0-level casters are?
it's Sorsha, Sevi,
Kane.
and who's the last one?
It's the 4 original War Machine factions, correct?
Oh, Crix, it's Denny.
It's Denny, right. So that kind of nails that down. You've had a chance to look at them a bit, George. What do you think?
As a general concept, I like them. They have said that there's a bunch of things.
Now remember,
that
they're juniors. They're not full-fledged casters. They're
Oh no,
gonna be
no!
playing-
I love the concept of these are the casters before they were casters. The other thing I love that these are some of the most powerful casters in the game when they were solos. So they are massively overpowered solos. Now that may be the thing that breaks them. I don't know whether they make it out of CID, but they have already said they're okay with their power level. Like they're
You have to change them a bit.
yeah, but they're okay with them being really powerful.
Fair.
And I kind of love that Sevi Zero is still like 50. Like, I mean,
How old is that son of a bitch? Anyway,
he's like 80 or something.
I'm a junior worcaster.
Get off my lawn.
Exactly.
It took me 35 years to get out of preparatory school. God
Yeah.
dang. He's like he's just really dumb. That's it.
Now, the thing about these Warcasters, or these juniors, is that they add something that could be potentially breaking in, something that we'll talk about later, something that might push you out of theme because of how
Right.
good they are.
It's because you're so good that you may not take a theme. 'cause
Yeah,
of-
you might have to,
Interesting.
once you come out of theme, it opens up all these options that you didn't have before.
Chris, you've got had a chance to take a look at them as they go through CAD, I'm sure. How do you feel about the 0-level casters?
I mean, at the same time as they announced the zeros, they talked about the nerf to Nemo 3, basically changing his feet and whatnot. And I feel like that needed to happen because Kane Zero, as he was first released, if Nemo 3 was unchanged,
yeah.
would have destroyed this game.
yeah.
Yep.
100%.
Well, it's fun.
So, I know that's kind of dramatic, but it was way too much, that combination, if that existed. So I'm really happy actually that they changed Kane Zero away from Snipe. I think you got Fire for Effect, I think it is,
Yeah.
or Fire for Effect.
Yeah.
And they toned down Sevi from being the best solo. He was basically the best melee solo in Menoth, which seems a little ridiculous. And they switched Denny from Parasite to Crippling Grasp, which is almost like a buff.
Yeah.
It's an interesting play space for they're going at. Back when they first released the Hordes Juniors, I was kind of hoping that would be something like Junior in Signar, where you got Arcane Shield. So they would come out with these little solos, and you'd get some upkeep spell that was really interesting. And so I kind of like that they're going that direction with these, and I'm kind of excited for the future.
It's funny you mentioned the whole change to Kane or to Nemo, because pretty much if you watch Aura's finals, there's a good 10 minutes where Banky just gets lost and go
Falls down that rabbit
Well,
hole.
it's funny because it was a good time to do it because it was like positioning time. It wasn't like an intense part of the battle, but it's just really funny because we both totally lost track of the game and we both had to go at one point like, okay, so there's a game going on. Let's stop talking about Nemo right now.
And by the way, if we haven't actually said this publicly, oh my God, what a game, man! You did amazing. That was so intense to watch. I couldn't make it to this year, and I had sort of been lurking the stream because occasionally these guys would need a something done, or I could yell at them, and I'm yelling at them from as far away as I could. But that last game, it was just like I just sat at my computer ignoring what was going on the other screens, and the stream that I was supposed to have like up in the background, I was just staring at. It was amazing.
We're going to talk about that in depth in a bit.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the new Crix releases that hit this week. Jason, you excited? Well, you're not playing Crix
I'm not playing Crix right now, but I'm severely tempted to go back to Crix for a little while just to try out all those new goodies.
Yeah.
The new troll dudes, the Bladed Marauders, I think they're called. Sweet models. Oh my God, they're so cool looking. And there's just a bunch of awesome stuff
And all the
in
new
Crix right now.
right?
Oh, all the new statistics. They came out a little while ago. They got the new solos, Axiara, Wraithblade, and Severia, something like that. Severa or something like that. But yeah, they're all incredibly sweet-looking models, and of course it's Crix, so they're fantastic on the table too.
Well, I mean, let's go over to Chris. Chris, you've had a chance to take a look at some of the new Crix models, I'm sure, in your in-depth studies, because you're going to have to be ready for them in the next few weeks. What are your thoughts on some of the new drops for Crix?
Drops against Crix?
Oh, well, the new
new
models and the new rules.
Axiara, or whatever her name is bonkers. She is so good. I would kill for a model like that in almost any other faction. Like, you have Prowl, Dodge, and what the heck is her third ability on a stick?
Run and gun or something? It's something ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like Swift Hunter, I think?
Yeah, I think it's Swift Hunter. Yeah.
But, like, bonkers on a solo. Like, you can give, like, crazy interactions.
Yeah.
I was I was at dinner the other night with Bubba and Banky, and I pointed out that you could actually give Prowl to Scar 3 and put her in concealment and gain stealth.
Yeah, that is gross.
Like,
holy crap!
I don't know whether that was an intended interaction, but it is an
Oh my God!
So that solo is bonkers. It's kind of interesting the way they've gone with a lot of these solos now. Like these solos that are like 6 or 5 points that would never have ever been played at the beginning of Mark III or in like Mark II at an equivalent point value, but because of the way that the tier lists work now, where you get almost always it's free solos and unit attachments, the point cost for those almost becomes irrelevant as long as the tier itself is good and has good options and whatnot. So like something like Exaria that's 6 point, whatever, however you pronounce her name, Exaria that's 6 points, Kralix like 6 points. Those models that would sort of be maligned are all of a sudden really good because they're available in tiers and they're free.
Yeah.
The next big bit of news was the double Kador Battle Engine box kit is now going up for pre-order.
Yep.
On what is it? Black Anchor Industries?
Black Anchor Heavy Industries.
Heavy Industries. That's H was what I was. Bahi. George, you're playing Kador right now. You gonna pick up one of them bad boys?
Nope. So if
There's a
you
resounding endorsement.
if you are a Canadian with any kind of links to a local game store, the Black Anchor Heavy Industries is a blight upon your large base purchasing. Because if I buy now, this your mileage will vary heavily. I am in a particular meta where I can buy things at US MSRP in Canadian dollars.
Spoiled.
So immediately, I'm not. As I said, your mileage will vary. So immediately, that just makes it a bad deal. The next step is if you have credit at your local store from selling Magic cards or something, you just literally can't buy those models at a discount like you would any other model. So, and then the Canadian government, like 60% of the time, sees a receipt in a box or on a box and dings you with taxes across the border.
Right. Well, normally
So,
they do, yes.
yeah. Well, as I said, about 60% of the time. So there is a opportunity for it to cost me 4 times what it should cost. Now, that being said, it's a neat looking model. I will eventually pick one up, but I'm sure shooting not pre-ordering it to get a hat.
A little shout out for our local gaming store Out of the Box. Dan has talked about doing probably a mass order.
Yes,
And
if I saw that happening, I would probably
So
jump
he's
on
got
it.
an American he's got an American post office box type of thing, so he can have it all delivered to there. Then the taxes are a lot less if you carry it across the border. Like if you drive it across the border, you're not going to get dinged because the problem is not the taxes. The problem
It's the
it's the import office likes to charge you an extra so many dollars to take care of your importing of your product. Anyway, that's besides the point. But yeah, we're gonna do something like that coming up the road. Next, of course, we have the Exemplars CID next week. They did a report on that.
Yeah, there was.
Let's not go through it point by
Okay.
point because it is CID and it all changed, and it's also the first week of CID, which
Well,
is like
They kind of just told us 5 of the
they
new
only
models.
told us 5 new things.
okay. Give it up.
So the 5 things are the models. The Incinerator Officer we had already heard before, and they just said he does more than just the shield wall, which is what they let go before. The Exemplar Warder, which is a Warcaster attachment solo that they're talking about as sort of a guard dog with a sword and shield. The Kador guard dog solo. The Shrine of the Lawgiver. It's a literal church. It's just a fucking church.
Fucking church.
It's a church that you stick in the middle of the battlefield. It's a 120 mil structure, and it's supposed to look awesome and do
I
some
think it's
buffing.
like a catapult or something, isn't it?
I don't know. They just said it's a literal church.
Yeah.
I guess the blockhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Hand of Silence, which is like
I wish I had one of those.
the Hand of Silence. It's a Reclaimer solo on a horse. And then the last one is the new caster, the High Exemplar Serenia.
Serenia?
Serenia.
Something like that.
And she's a female exemplar warcaster, and she's on a small base.
Oh, so they're getting a new Warcaster.
Yep.
She's super, super mad all the time. Apparently, that's what they were saying. She's
Isn't that the
full of
entire-
rage.
Isn't that
Well,
the entire faction?
Yeah.
Hungerford has some very deep views on Menoth and Menites about their alleged intolerance, we'll call it.
Gotcha. So with the other thing the reason why you know this is because there was a dev talk today.
Yeah, they have dev talks every Wednesday.
So you got the list in front of you because you took the time to watch it today. Give us some of the highlights from some of the other things.
They did the exemplars. They did a quick talk about Monpok. Basically, they talked about how they've expanded the
Monster
map. Monster Apocalypse.
Monster Apocalypse. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a game that is coming back from the dead. It was quite big. A lot of people liked it. They announced a movie deal, and then it disappeared. And now it's back. So they talked about the fact that the map is getting a little bit bigger. And for some reason... Now, I never played Monpok, so I can't speak to why these matter. But the troops can now move through monsters. I don't know why that's good, but apparently that's a thing that's happening. And the other thing that they talked a bit about was that the art direction is a little less cartoony. So they're adding more detail to the monsters and to the play mats and stuff like that. So it should be. I'm definitely excited to play it. I don't know if I'll get into it as a second game, but I'm definitely excited to give it a try. The other thing,
Minty will have the first demo.
by the way, Minty has all of it.
They said all the parts will be 100% compatible with War Machine for as far as legal model goes, so you can swap.
Ooh, that's going to be a lot of fun
I'm waiting
conversion
for
stuff.
all those Lords of Cthulhu tentacles.
Nice.
Yeah.
The next thing they talked about was the first shots, which are a way to get kids into the game.
Right.
So the idea is that your kid brings a Jack and a Warcaster, and you bring a 6-man group and a solo. These aren't any specific model. They are a generic Warcaster and a generic Warjack and a generic unit.
And then you do shots.
Pretty much. You'll play a scenario with no caster kill, and it's a team base, so it's the parent and child against another parent and child.
Okay.
And the parents' models all have buffs for the kids models to do things. So that looks really good. And the other big thing they announced was that we're finally getting the caster draft cards. So if you went to the SOO and played caster draft, or if you went to Lock and Load, I think was the other place that caster draft happened, then you may have actually already played it, but otherwise it goes live this Friday.
Cool. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the round table. There was a lot of news, and I'm sure there was 10 things that we forgot about. You can post all about that in the chat.
You can bitch at us.
So what we're going to talk about tonight in the round table, well, really, we're going to let Chris talk. To start with, Chris, we're going to talk about the SOO, the Masters. It was pretty cool because I got to watch 2 out of your 5 games. I think it was only 6. 2 out of your 6 games. I got to watch your games firsthand. They were just amazing to watch. I think we've said it before in the cast. Banky said it as well. Those particular games, if you want kind of a master class on using positioning to carve a win out of what seems like an unwinnable situation, those are them. Also, they're a great study of how to not let things going wrong tilt you out of a game, because I think there's a really interesting moment. There's a really interesting interaction between 2 best friends, between Chris and Bubba, where Chris is literally cursing the list that Bubba is playing. And it is amazing because that's a moment I'm like, oh man, God, Chris is just going to let that list beat him just because he hates it so much. And then that didn't happen. So let's talk about the list that you chose for the Masters. Let's start there because it was a 3-list event, and why you chose those lists.
So in the past, in the past, I've played Legion sort of with the mindset of like a gun line and an anti-armor list. That was sort of the way that you built Legion, in my opinion. And the way the meta has shifted and the game of Mark III and the transition to themes and whatnot, that strategy is no longer viable. You, generally speaking, like, someone either has an answer to guns or they don't, but even if they don't, you don't necessarily just win because you have guns. And Legion guns have also gotten a lot less powerful. There's not things like Mark II, Lilith II, and there's not like the Veil 2 assassination run and things like that used to exist in Mark II. So Legion has had to really sort of change strategy. What was nice was this was a 3-list format, so I was able to still bring a gun line, which I normally sort of wouldn't be able to in a normal 2-list format. And so I brought, my 3 lists were Lilith 2, essentially just a gun line with a lot of Ravagors and Carnavians. I was playing Callus 1 out of theme with Blightbringer and basically a horde of infantry, so 2 units of Grotesques and a unit of Swordsmen. And then I had Thagrosh 1 inside Children of the Dragon theme, which was the list I played the majority of the event, and it was on the stream, I think, 4 rounds. So I honestly, I kind of lucked into the Thagrosh list. I played it in Champions the day before, not really knowing what I was going to play in Masters, and played the Thagrosh list all 4 rounds before I dropped from Champions, and really liked the way the list was playing. So I decided to carry it over to the Masters, and then basically picked 2 other lists that I was comfortable with or that I felt complemented it, and those were the 3 lists that I brought.
So let's talk a bit about your rounds. The early rounds are the early rounds. Maybe go over the rounds that mattered, some of the difficult choices you had to make, and some of the big plays, that sort of thing, before we get to those final 2 rounds. What was the lead up? Because not all of us got to see the first bunch of rounds.
Yeah, so the Masters was 7 rounds. So I played against a bit of a variety of casters, and some of them were sort of, I don't want to say dark horsey, but they were not sort of the expected meta, if you want to call it that. So I played against, so for the whole 7 rounds, I played against Assyria, Amon, Ossian, Kruger 2, Malok 1, Resheth, and then Gaspy 3. So I played all 3 of my lists in the first 3 rounds, just as it worked out. Those were the people that I got. Some interesting rounds. So I played Mike Ireland round 3. It was Ossian versus Lilith 2. And he had the double crickets, which seems really bad for a gun line. It was actually a really interesting matchup. I ended up shadow binding one of his crickets, with the cricket being the Ret battle engine, in case anyone's not familiar with the short term. But so I shadow bound it with the Naga, which sort of locked it in place and prevented it from going into the scenario was one with 2 circles. And so it kind of forced a scenario engagement where he had to sort of come into the zones as opposed to just towing them with the battle engines and just getting to contest. End of the game came down to Ossian had retreated behind a forest, and I had 2 different judge calls just to verify that I was in the right position to do these things. But basically, Lilith could walk and get to within 3 inches of the edge of the forest to shoot him through the forest, and a Carnivian was within 6 inches of walking to get into melee to get on Ossian, and between the 2 of them, they were able to kill him. So that was a really interesting game. If I wasn't able to assassinate there, the game might have gone away from me because I was running out of models to score with, essentially. Another really interesting game was, it was streamed. It was extremely short, the game, just the way it worked out. But I played against Nicholas Rattel. I was playing Kruger 2. And Nick made this I thought it was a really amazing play that I just had not seen. So I went first, ran up, and I very foolishly put an upkeep spell onto Typhon, Draconic Blessing, to make him immune to fire, thinking I don't want to be shot by the battle engine. He had the Celestial Fulcrum, which makes the Wold Weirds very angry when you have an upkeep.
Oh my god.
No.
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 So I was outside of range of him because it's the top of 1, or now going into the bottom 1, his turn. But he did a really interesting play where he trampled both Megalith and a Warden up to TK and Gallows me, and then I believe he also TK'd his own wolves, the Wold Weirds, but between that combination was able to get 2 Wold Weirds into range of Typhon, which should blow me off the table, especially when you add in the damage roll from a Gallows. Yeah. Instead, what happened was, so he got the Gallows and pulled me something like 3 or 4 inches. He missed the TK, but the TK wasn't as relevant as... So he was thinking that he could TK me, turn me around backwards, and improve his odds to hit. Typhon has a rule that you don't get the backstrike bonus, so it wouldn't have mattered that part of it. But he proceeded to miss 6 out of 7 boosted 9s.
Oh,
which,
no.
I think a boosted 9 is something like a 90%, to get. And so he just missed all of his shots, which meant that I had a full health, basically undamaged Typhon within charge range of his heavies, and Azrael was right behind him. So Kruger had to move up on the bottom of 1 and feat defensively to push me back and slow me down. Otherwise, he loses his battle group.
Wow.
So it was kind of he made this super sweet, very technical play, and the dice were just nope.
Not today.
We've all
sir.
had that happen.
I mean, I ended up winning the event, right? One of the things that you have to do to be able to win an event is get lucky, and that was just one of several cases where I got super lucky. Typhon should have died there. I screwed up. That was a very bad play on my part. I should not have put Draconic Blessing on that model, but I did. And he took advantage, and the dice just came up saying no. A similar thing happened with Danny in round 5, I want to say. So Danny was playing Maylock 1, and sent a... So he ended up, because of Fog of War, he missed a boosted mortality, is it that Maylock has?
Yeah.
-2 Death and Arm. He missed that spell because of Fog of War to hit Azrael, which became super relevant because he sent a fully loaded Wrestler in and a Bone Swarm in with, I think, Fury on it, and they both basically proceeded to miss all of their unboosted 6s to hit and did 5 damage or something, which totally swung that game. Yeah. And so then I was able to... I think he ended up clocking out, was the end result of that game. But basically he would have killed Azrael and scored 2 points on recon because he would have scored his zone and his flag, and Azrael was contesting both. So it was a huge swing in the scenario game, which then forced him to use a lot of time in other areas.
So let's talk a bit about the finals. I got to watch both your finals games. Let's start with your final or your semifinal against Corey. That was against Ostrom with a fairly well balanced. I mean, balanced list in the fact that.
Oh, I didn't.
Oh no, sorry, that was Magnus. It was Magnus, right?
No, it was Corey Burns playing Reshef.
Oh, sorry about that. It was Corey Burns
Doyle.
playing. My bad, not Doyle.
Yeah, you're thinking champions.
Too many things I watched over the course of the weekend. Yeah, sorry about that. Let's talk about your battle against Reshef, because that again was very much about placement.
That was a really interesting game. The Hex Hunters were actually super critical in that game. The way it worked out was I got first turn. I think I got first turn the majority of my games that weekend. I just happened to roll really well for first turn. But they were in charge range of one of his battle engines, the Scorn Turtle. And I was a fraction out of the second one. If I'd gotten both, that would have been a very big swing in that game. But I was able to Shadowbind the one, which stops a lot of its offensive output. And I was able to Shadowbind it for 2 or 3 turns in a row, which sort of helped me hold down my left flank throughout the game. And so after Shadowbinding it, I sort of very aggressively moved up. Typhon ends Azrael onto a hill under Fog of War within charge range of the turtle, which forced him to feat. And then this is another one of those cases where I got lucky with some dice, and I proceeded to roll, I think it was 8 or 9 excessive healing 3s, healing 3 off of excessive healing in a row, to the point where I mitigated about half of Resheth's feat. He then switched targets and stopped shooting at Typhon. Instead killed Azrael and Zuriel. And he RFP'd Zuriel because he had Carnivore on the second battle engine.
So that was also interesting. We learned that those battle engines get to clear things out of their way, which I think you had never seen that before either, because I remember it coming up. That was a judge call. But I thought that was pretty neat, because it was one of those well, that's pretty cool. They don't worry about being jammed at all.
Yeah, so it was an interesting interaction. So normally, for example, if you activate a model a good example would be the Stormwall. The Stormwall theoretically can clear a model before it goes to shoot by dropping a storm pod, which zaps a model that's engaging it. And in that particular case, because of the way the storm pod works, it's after your movement. You can't then sacrifice your movement to aim. You can't aim while you're in melee. It's a rule of it's now a rule in general, but it used to be just a rule on the Colossals. The battle engine, I assumed, sort of worked the same way. I wasn't thinking, so I engaged it, and it has that independent attack, I think is what it's called, the rule. But so it essentially gets to make its little pokey sticks before its movement, which means it can still sacrifice its movement to aim, which is a really interesting interaction. It stops me being able to jam it the same way, and it meant an additional +2 to hit for his rat on his gun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those things are fun.
So
the turtles are so good.
Yeah.
So let's go into the finals game. What was interesting about this is that Bubba's on your team for the WTC. Is this a battle you guys had played out before in practice? Is this something that you guys have done before? What is it like playing against your buddy?
So Bubba and I Bubba and I sort of hate playing each other. We're best friends. He was the best man at my wedding, but we both we hate playing against each other because we know each other. Neither of us wants the other person to lose, which is you know what I mean. Your friend now loses. Banky talked about it a bit on the commentary, and we actually talked about it a bit the other day at dinner together, all three of us. Bubba and I have sort of polar opposite play styles. Bubba is very intuitive and kind of will put a model in a spot because that is the spot that it should go, and he just knows that that's the best spot to go. And I'm someone that will put the model into the spot and measure a whole bunch of things to make sure that that's the right spot. And so the polar opposites are I'll question him when he puts a model in a spot and be like, well, are you actually outside of 14 inches when you say you are? You didn't measure it. And intuitively he knows that it is. So he gets annoyed that I ask him, but I get annoyed that he didn't measure. And so it's sort of like you kind of get the whole game. You're like questioning things. You're both getting frustrated. It's because we're best friends and like we hate like having to pester the other person. But it is not a matchup we had played before. The Slayers versus like Legion in general. I have played it against some other people, but not against Bubba. So that was an interesting part of the matchup. Is just neither of us had played this matchup. Actually, that's not true. Bubba had just played this matchup against Jake the round before. But
Jake,
I had not played it yet.
Jake's in the chat. He may be able to speak to that a little bit.
Okay, great. Well, go over that game and some of the things that happened during it, some of the high points, the low points, the when did you when did you know that things were going to be okay? When did you think it was all over? That kind of thing.
So a couple of things happened to that game that like turned it around. So the Slayer list is a really good list. I kind of hate it. I think it was around turn 3. I'm just like, I hate this list so much. Bubba, like a number of his games, like it's not saying like, oh, Bubba is a bad player. That's not what I mean.
No.
Bubba is able to leverage scenario to a very good winning position with this list. What I was saying in the game was, I'm like, he's making a handful of power attacks and he's in a position to win this game. Like, he didn't attack my battle group until near the end of the game. Like, he just wasn't attacking something like 75% of my list. But he's able to still leverage that to a like 3-point or 4-point scenario lead. And that's kind of a weird place to be in, where you can just like slam or throw models almost trivially, and you're so fast that it becomes very difficult to meaningfully contest zones without just giving your army away. And so that's one of the advantages of that list. If I had not won the die roll to go first, I'm pretty sure that would have been an extremely uphill game. Basically, like Slayers being able to run 16 inches, ignoring terrain on the top of one is excessive. And I believe, I think they have extra 2-inch deployment in that tier, maybe?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They do. So, like, they start out 9 inches on the top of one, and then they run another 16. So they're past the halfway mark on the top of one before, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a lot of pressure on the scenario. The combination with Gatsby of like mobility for +2 speeds, you're getting basically an additional 4 inches when you run.
Yeah.
Pathfinder, you're getting the Carapace from the tier, so you're almost like, I say immune to guns. You're not actually immune to guns, but it's very uphill for guns.
Arm 21, so it's a pain. Yeah.
You're very like durable versus free strikes because of Carapace again.
Yeah.
And then the feat, you gain the souls, which then allows you to power the battle group. It's a very rough list to play against. I was fortunate that I did get first turn, so I pushed up as aggressively as I could, and I benefited from talking to Jake a little bit about his game and also sort of seeing the end of Jake's game because my game against Corey was done first. And so one of the things that, like Jake had said, was he gave the Hex Hunters away too early. And so when I moved up, I specifically, you can see I measured every one of the Hex Hunters to make sure none of them were in charge range so that I didn't give any of them away to like free charges. Because the Hex Hunters were going to play a very key role in damage mitigation, positioning, and just sort of like allowing me to play the game like more defensively. So I was able to, Bubba moved up, he killed a few of the Hex Hunters with his Arc Nodes walking up and shooting them. And maybe a spell. I don't remember exactly, but I believe he feated that turn and gained a whole bunch of souls and positioned himself very aggressively, so that if I went into his Jax and tried to do work, he'd be gaining all of his soul tokens for the next turn to set up for a scenario push on the bottom of 2. And so thankfully, a couple of big things in the game. Typhon was able to just stay out of Gatsby's control area and attack a Slayer without giving him any soul tokens, which was basically I got a heavy more or less for free, which was a big deal. And then I was able to Shadowbind and cripple the Cortexes on 2 of his Jacks using Zuriel and scalpeling out the Cortexes in order to mean that those 2 models couldn't attack. And then I think Azrael like did a little bit of damage to somebody, but like it sort of meant that 3 of his heavies weren't going to do anything the next turn, which is a big deal, and sort of allowed me to stay in the game. Bubba made a big scenario push, which should have taken him to 3 points, but he missed a spell martyr that was sitting in the back corner of my zone behind a statue, which was a big deal. Like that was sort of like the deciding factor, because he missed that model, didn't have a model in a position to sort of get it, which allowed him to only get a 2-point advantage. And then the next turn, I had 2 of my Beast Frenzy, which was huge, so sort of a low point for me. And so I go into the tank, had to think for a while, and I ended up deciding to destroy his objective with Azrael in order to sort of close the scenario gap and mean that he couldn't win in a single turn. So he proceeded to sort of, I think he scored 2 points the next turn and sort of got up 3-1 on scenario, but instead of 3-0, which is a huge difference, which allowed me to slowly over time contest. He clears the contesting models by throwing or slamming. I score a point somewhere, and we sort of did that back and forth all the way to the end of the game. Came down to I had a Zuriel that had been feeded back and Typhon, and he had I think it was an Arc Node and his caster. Basically the end of the game we were down to almost nothing. But at the bottom of 7, I ended up being up by an additional CP because he couldn't contest the last zone. So it was a super tight, very nail-biting game.
So I guess that kind of leads to making the lemon out of lemonade part of tonight's discussion. You talked a bit about that super tilting moment where, well, not super tilting, but the super hard moment where 2 of your beasts frenzied. You weren't really hoping for that. When you went back into the tank, kind of sat down and thought about it, what were the, what do you as Chris Orr do to get yourself out of that sort of hard stage and get your head back in the game?
So that's one of those key things that makes the difference between a player that sort of finishes top 10 or top 3. And I'll tilt. I'm just as bad for it as anyone else. Dice can tilt me. I think Banky comments on the game at one point that I'm boosting a 6, and he's like, Chris shouldn't boost here, but he's not going to trust his dice. It can happen to anyone, but that's sort of that's the difference that means going from 10th to 3rd or to 1st or whatever, is the ability to be you don't just scoop the game, or you don't just give up because something has gone wrong, something's gone against you. You need to try and look for another way out. Sometimes that's an assassination, but there's a lot of people that sort of go, oh, this turn didn't work, I'm going to immediately try and kill you, even though the math is terrible. And sometimes by sort of holding back and just trying not to lose as opposed to trying to win. So that turn, I didn't play to win the game, I played not to lose. So I was what do I need to do to not lose here? Well, he's not going to wipe me off the board in one turn, but he could push to 5 CPs if I let him get ahead too much. He's got a 2 CP lead now. There's 3 zones. He just needs to clear 3 and he wins. So I was okay, how do I get out of this? I think I took a free strike on Azrael from a Slayer in order to walk up and attack his objective and kill it. It cost me the output of Azrael into a heavy, so instead of killing something and getting up on attrition, I'm attacking his objective, and I'm taking some damage on my beast. But that was the difference that kept me in that game and stopped me potentially losing in one turn. Sometimes it's if your opponent has a very aggressive assassination caster, it's just running away with your caster so you don't lose. That is sort of the key. You're not going to win the game by running away with your caster, but you're not going to lose this turn. And so sometimes just sort of taking that extra turn and waiting for your opponent to make a mistake or giving you a chance to catch up or whatever is sort of the make or break of the game.
I think we're going to skip ahead in some of our line of thinking. I think you answered most of the questions that are in the roundtable thing. I guess the next thing is there's a lot of sort of tough matchups that you have to face, that you have to deal with. Things like Jack Spam and Crix, or a really tough feats
What a phrase to now have to say.
Jack Spam and Crix.
Yeah, it feels weird in my mouth.
Well, it's same when it's beginning of Mark III, when we would never have thought Jack Spam and Kador would be a thing either. But high armor Jack Spam or those types of things. Really ball busting feats like Haley 2 or Magnus 2, things that just change the game. Do you have any advice for players going into their final rounds, and now you're no longer facing fun rounds. Now you're into those really tough rounds. You've got a headache because you've been playing solid, and then that you're going to be facing somebody's A game. What's the advice to deal with that?
So it depends on, like, obviously it depends situation to situation. There are things, so mitigation, like trying to mitigate how much they get done. So like, for example, Rasheth's feat is ball busting. I think it's -2 strength, armor, defense. You can't cast spells, I think it is, or animi. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff in his feat. I might be wrong with the last part. I might be confusing it with chastise, I think it is. But so like against Corey, I knew his feat was going to be rough, and it was going to drop my defense by 2. I did as much to mitigate it as I could. I don't have shield guards in that list. I don't have like a cloud wall or anything like that. I put my beasts onto a hill under Fog of War. That was the most I could do for their stats. And then positioning, trying to restrict how much could physically get onto those models. So I was really abusing, there was a forest in the center of the table that sort of divided the table in half. And so you could see very clearly that like I was using that to stop him being able to focus fire very much. It was basically one turtle against my army on one side and one turtle and his guns against the rest of my army on the other side. And because I was on the hill, it meant that he had some poor dice and they missed a bunch of attacks. And that was the difference to keeping Typhon alive, which then allowed me to force scenario. Typhon walked up and sprayed a bunch of his Reavers off, cleared a zone, and I scored, I think it was 3 CPs in one turn, which then forced him to now come into me. A lot of people will not play around things like that feat, or will not take advantage of those natural elements in the table, like a forest or the hill or whatever, and they'll just kind of throw their models forward because this is the formation they usually play their army in. Typhon goes up the middle, the Hex Hunters go on the left flank. You need to be able to adjust those things based on the scenario, the terrain, what your opponent has facing off with them, that kind of thing. Like, for the Hex Hunters, they usually have Prowl, so they have stealth. Don't stick them across the board from, like, House Guard Riflemen with the solo that gives them the ability to ignore stealth. You want them on the opposite flank, like, things like that. Sort of play around those elements. For something like a control feat, like Magnus, for example, like the Magnus 2, I think it is, that you can't advance towards the 2 table edges, a big thing is playing around that. So specifically holding back a key piece to run and contest. That's usually all you need is 1 or 2 like pieces. Magnus 2, or like old school, like back in Mark 2, Denny 2, where you got Shadowbound and couldn't move. The spawning vessel was really good for that, because the spawning vessel would create a model that was not affected by the feat, and that Harrier usually would be able to run to a position where they would contest. And some of those, like, if you have an inexperienced or like a newer, like those kind of control feat caster, they will maybe not expect that, and so they were kind of leveraging that, I'm going to win on scenario next turn. And all of a sudden, if you contest one, or now with the way scenarios work, sometimes you can contest multiple elements with like one piece, that can sort of change that whole dynamic, and you sort of weather their feat, and then you're able to retaliate the next turn. Using Rasheth again as an example, my original plan moving up with Azrael and Typhon onto the hill was I was going to then charge the Shadowbound Turtle the next turn. Instead, because I realized the combination of his feat, the -2 strength, positioning was going to be kind of awkward for me to apply Draconic Blessing to Typhon. I could do it, but I might expose my caster or something along those lines. And then I was like, the math on killing the turtle isn't actually that good. Like, it's like a 50-50 whether I actually do it. And I was like, if I don't do it, I just lose. Like, I'm going to lose my heavy. Like, I've not killed his battle engine. I've already lost 2 heavies from his feet. So I ended up changing tactics and, like, basically using Typhon to kill, I think it was 2 or 3 Reavers instead of trying to kill a battle engine. And so I'm using a 20-point model to kill 3 Reavers, but it scored me a CP, and that was my path to victory at that point, was scenario. And so sometimes it's like realizing that, like, yes, there's a ball-busting control feat or a super powerful warlock across the table. Sometimes you don't need to play that game. You're not trying to kill all of their models. You're not trying to kill their caster because it's super durable. Maybe you're just going to win on scenario, or you're going to win on clock, or some combination thereof.
That's pretty much the only way I ever beat you guys. Clocker scenario. Jason, I think it's time for a little focus. This is your topic, so hit that button.
You gotta find it first. There it is.
Focus! Go back. So, Jason, you played Legion for a long time, and I think you,
2 years in Mark II.
2 years in
Not
Mark
a
II.
long time, but
It was
time.
It was your passion.
It was my first faction.
And it was,
it's
your first love. You
yeah.
look back on it fondly.
Very fondly.
One of the things that you thought was really crazy this week is big tournament, and we just talked about Chris playing one of his lists out of theme. It seems like Legion's one of the few factions that's playing lists out of theme.
Yeah.
Talk to that a bit, and then let's talk about this focus, and you can ask Chris the questions. You got the comm, buddy.
Well, I'm sure Chris can speak to it better than I can. But there was a gentleman who at Kingdom Con?
Yeah, Kingdom Con.
Kingdom Con? Yeah. He played several lists out of theme and took 4th place, which for a big con like that is a pretty big deal. So speaking specifically to Legion, Chris, how effective do you feel they are between being in theme and out of theme? Is there a whole lot of difference for Legion? Are there some things that are just better out of theme?
Sorry, say that again?
Do you feel that, with Legion specifically, do you feel that there are some things that are just better out of theme, that they have a certain viability out of theme that some other factions don't?
Yeah, so so Dan, one of the lists that he played was Lilith 3 out of theme. And I think Lilith 3 is one of the casters that a really strong argument can be made to play her out of theme. I actually took her out of theme myself to the War Machine Weekend Invitational. She was one of my 2 lists at that event. And again, I was out of theme specifically because I wanted Typhon.
Yeah.
I feel like she does a whole lot for what he wants, and he does a whole lot for what she wants in the game. So, like, she increases his speed, sort of increases his accuracy thanks to the feat if you use it sort of offensively. He's a great feat applier as well as an assassination piece, and he's just an overall good beast, and she really likes excessive healing because she has a lot of boxes.
Yeah.
So Dan played a list that was very similar to what I played at War Machine Weekend. He had a unit of Striders. I did not at War Machine Weekend. I had a unit of Striders when I took the list out of theme to WTC 2 or 3 years ago. But basically, like, I talked a little bit about it with him, and he was saying he leveraged the list of scenario a lot. So he was using Lilith and the Deathstalkers to clear those models, those like one-off models you usually run to contest. Basically, he would clear those from very far away so that you would have to put meaningful pieces in to contest the scenario, and then he would kill them with Typhon and the Angel or repulse them out or whatever. There's a couple of places that I think Legion can play out of theme. I personally have been playing Callus 1 out of theme for a while. I know that's not very in favor, and a lot of people prefer, like Jake plays it in like Ravens, for example. So he gets, there's not a huge amount of difference between the lists. Basically, I get a Blightbringer instead of 2 Angels, and then he gets some additional free points, obviously, and he gets the ambushing Grotesque. I personally like the Blightbringer. I just have a lot of experience playing Callus with a Blightbringer. And it's also, so the list started as sort of an approximation of what Primal Terrors is going to be down the road, because Grotesques are very similar to Rotwings, and I kind of wanted to start practicing that before it was legal in tournaments. I did play Callus 1 at WTC 2 or 3 years ago, and it was a very similar list to what I'm playing now. So I have a lot of like reps with the list, and an interesting aspect of playing out of theme is nobody expects it and nobody like understands it, and so like you kind of have that like gotcha thing going into the game where there's interactions they just aren't expecting because they haven't seen someone play out of theme in like a year and a half, whatever it is. And so like to play out of theme, like you don't want to do it just to be a special snowflake. You need to be getting like tangible benefits. Personally, I hate the Ravens of War tier. I have since the day it came out. I dislike the tier because I find it's way too restrictive. It restricts your infantry, it restricts your beasts, it restricts like what you can take in terms of mercenaries and like minions. It's a super restrictive list, and what you get for that benefit are some free points based on how much infantry you take, and you get ambush on your grotesque. That's more or less it. I think there's a third benefit, but I can't even think of what it is. But like, I just never particularly liked that tier. And so, like, for example, when I'm playing Callus, what I get that is not in that list is I get the Blightbringer, which is a huge thing for me anyway.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
My caster is more durable. I also get access to more in the way of like minions, like solos that you can't take in like that list, that kind of thing. I had swordsman at the Masters tournament, so like I had a hard hitting like backline unit, and so it's sort of like personal preference. I just wanted like that sort of list build style, and it was more in keeping with what Primal Terrors is going to be, so it was more practice for me essentially. What you don't want to do is be playing something where you're almost a tier list anyway, and you're just playing like 12 or 15 points down because you have a succubus in your list and that's it. Yeah. Unless the succubus is worth 12 or 15 points, it's probably not a good proposition. So like Dan's like little 3 list, he was playing Deathstalkers, which are not in like a tier. He was playing Typhon, which is not in the tier, like if you're playing like Oracles or something.
Yeah.
He was like, if you were to play it in Ravens, he would not have gotten Typhon, and he kind of lacks that like beater heavy that you really need to be able to do the list. I think the Succubus isn't in Ravens as well, if I'm not mistaken. So like he was missing out on that piece. So like there's a lot of things that you're like missing. You might not get Shepherds in the list as well. Shepherds or Forsaken, I think, are denied. One of them is denied. So like he had the other Fury management. There's some other factions I think that can do it. It's just I don't have as much experience like building lists out of tier for them.
Right.
I think you can make an argument that Signar could play a list out of tier and be okay. I think Menoth was playing out of tier for a good while there. There's just like the thing is like PP has done a good job of putting I think every model is in a tier now after the theme update last year. I don't think there's any models that are not in a tier somewhere. Yeah. Just the problem is sometimes they're not in a tier that like is thought to be competitive now. Every tier might be competitive and just hasn't been thought that way. Sometimes you'll have a caster that come out of the blue that a tier turns them on. Other casters might be better out of tier. It's one of the things that I am sad about tiers is that certain casters, they want a certain play style and they just don't have a tier that like suits them yet.
Yeah.
But it means that there's like lots of opportunity in the future.
Tears for tears. One last question, Jason, then we're going to cut off for this evening.
Do you feel like just because it seems like several people are playing Legion, even just 1 or 2 lists out of theme now, do you feel like Legion's theme lists are too restrictive? They just don't seem to mix the models well.
So I've already said I don't like the Ravens tier. So
right?
Like, it's kind of a hot take, but I personally felt like Children of the Dragon, especially as it initially came out, and Ravens of War both felt almost like unfinished tiers. Yeah. They felt like they were missing something that made them good, or that made them like they were missing a key piece, sort of. And Children, they did come back and they added the character Nephilim to that tier.
Yeah, that
which
helped.
Made a big difference.
Yeah.
And then they've also now gone back and like the most recent Legion CID did a lot of really good things. I complained for a really long time that I thought the Legion beasts were overpriced when compared with comparable heavies in other factions.
Correct.
If you look at like a Troll Mauler at 15 points or a Skin and Moans at 16 points, I think it is.
Yeah, 15
when you
or
compare
16.
that to like a Carnivian at 19 or a Ravagore at 19, you like it just seems out to lunch almost by comparison.
Yeah.
Now when you have the Scythian and the Ravagore at 16 points, that is a much more compelling option and a much more like fair, like seems much more fair across factions.
Yeah, I agree.
I think Primal Terrors is a really big boon to Legion. I feel like so Primal Terrors, despite the fact that it's still missing like the models that are coming out in May and June, once those models are out, that feels like a complete tier to me.
Yeah.
Oracles of Annihilation has felt like a completed full tier that you can play viably up to this point. I just felt like Children was kind of it was missing something until they added the character beasts, and like in my opinion, Ravens is still missing something that makes it exciting for me.
Yeah.
I miss playing with like Deathstalkers, for example. That's the only tier where I play them. But I don't like having it restrict. Like if it, for example, I had argued before the character change, if they had changed the theme benefits on Ravens and Children. So you get free points for taking Infantry in Ravens, and you get free points for taking Nephilim or like War Beasts in Children. If they had swapped those two, I would have been much more interested in those tiers, because Children could have been the all infantry, like you just take, all the infantry all day, you take minimum like Nephilim, and like that could have been an interesting, like unique play space.
Yeah.
I feel like the way most people are playing it now is Raven as like a dude swarm with like double grotesque is the way to play that list. I just don't like. I feel like I'm missing like a late game element. I feel like I sort of have that first wave that goes in, and then I just can't finish the game.
Yeah. All right, boys.
That's a hot take, and that's just my personal opinion.
There's a lot of people I think that would agree with that.
Hot
But,
take.
like,
but you know
Jake
what?
has shown like that list is very good. Like he's done very well with it, and like he's won a lot of games with it. It is a very viable list. It just doesn't suit how I want to play Callus, for example. I really like having that anchor piece of the Blightbringer, and it also gives your caster a little more durability, and I find I get Callus killed with 2 angels.
Yeah.
So
that's fair.
it's just a difference in playstyle. He's able to protect his caster better than I am.
Yep.
So
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, Jason, it's time for
The lightning round.
9 of the hardest questions in War Machine.
9.
Minty never got back to me. And if I try to make up my own Minty Fresh question, it's going to go horribly, horribly wrong. I'm like,
Well, that's
I
the
can look at
best type.
5 interactions and see how they add up, and then I just have Pagani call me and go, that's not how that works.
Or it isn't anymore.
All right. Chris, you're going to have to raise your hand when you buzz, just because sometimes these guys buzz loud enough that it just cuts you right off. That is their tactic to win.
It's fair and balanced.
Question number 1. Fill in the blanks. Animag the blank blank. Jason.
Animag the Doom Feaster.
Correctamundo. Question number 2. How many tentacle attacks can the Throne of Everblight make? Oh, Jason again.
4.
It is 4, correct. That's your 2. That's
Oh, yeah.
You're cut
I'm
off.
done now, yeah.
Question number 3. What is the arm on a Crix Slayer?
Base arm 17, sir.
Correct. Wow, you're
someone's winning.
the Rain Man of War Machines. Kidding.
He must have had exactly the right amount of alcohol.
Question number 4. What is Magnus 2's Field Marshal?
Is that
George.
unyielding?
Reposition?
No, it's not reposition. Chris, you were second.
Unyielding?
It is unyielding.
Nice.
Correct. Question number 5. Ritual Slaughter does what? Chris.
Lets you cast a spell when an Ogren kills a model in melee.
Correctamundo.
Nice. Very
Question
nice.
number 6. What is the standard volume of a Colossal? Standard. This should have been the Minty Fresh question. Go ahead.
The total volume or the...
It's specifically the height. In
the height.
In the volume rule, what is the height?
I believe it's 7 inches.
Incorrect.
Oh.
Anybody else want to give a guess? It is 5 inches.
Oh, it's only
5.
5.
It's 5 inches. Question number 7. Who is the Fang of Everblight?
Oh,
Jason.
Kralix.
It is. Question number... Damn, you're
Holy
kicking
shit,
some
dude.
serious ass tonight. Question number 8. What does Gorag use for his melee weapon? Chris.
Gorag is the solo? No, is the beast.
Golab is the beast.
Oh,
Sorry, Golab. Golab.
Gorag's so he has horns and a staff.
It's called a Great Mace. The
Great Mace.
Great Mace. But I'll give you that one just because Jason's been hogging all the good questions. Question number 9, and the final question for this evening. Who is the Blightedness Legionnaire's command attachment? Chris.
Faralor.
Yes, it is. Captain Fairlore and the Standard. You get the Standard.
That was a trick question. Nobody plays
I love that his I love that his little friend's name is the Standard.
The Standard. That's what I'm going to call you from now on.
The Standard.
You're just the
I
Standard.
miss that standard. It used to be good in Mark II.
Yeah, it used to be.
You used to have mage static, so -5 range to enemy spells.
That was really good.
All right. Before I thank Chris for all of his input and wisdom, we've got to do a little bit of upkeep tonight. First things first, I am going to be going to Out of the Box once I get back from my next shoot. I'm going to be spending the next couple of months going to Out of the Box for game nights on Tuesdays.
Ooh, you're
for a
actually
little
going to go? Nice.
Yep. So I'm only allowed one game night out a week on top of all this other stuff. So I'm going to be cutting out the pub for a little bit. The reason why I wanted to go to Out of the Box is because
You keep fighting the same people?
well, it's time for a little bit of a shake-up, which that's part one. But secondly, Out of the Box is a great store to go to. They've got a great game room. Got the US MSRP on the prices, as we talked about. And you can order that crap online. Like, it's not, like, limited to us.
So say you're in Ontario.
Yep.
I am.
And you go down to your local game store and you take a look at the shelf and you realize that model is 15% above US MSRP because you're in Canada, right? And you got to do the conversion and they got to import it and everything. If you went to the Out of the Box website, you could order everything at US MSRP and there's flat shipping of like $12.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
So as soon as you get over $12 in savings, it's free and just shows up at your house.
Yep. Pretty solid.
It's
In a
pretty
couple
good.
days.
In a couple
It's
days.
fast, yeah. It's
Yeah,
good.
And
really
if you live
fast.
in the Ottawa area, you can click the little button for pick up yourself, and you don't have to pay that.
Yeah, they're also turning very much into a hobby store as well. They have a full line
Oh
of
my God!
Yeah,
they've
they
got
picked up the
everything.
full
Airbrush
line
colors.
of Vallejo paints.
All the airbrush
Game Air,
paints.
yeah.
It's super good. Anyways, that's check out those guys. They're super awesome. We have a bit of Fraser upkeep to do this evening. Everybody, please use the Battle Reporter because I believe it's working again.
a
It is.
tiny troll told me.
Tiny Troll told me today
That's
as well.
not nice to say about Fraser.
Other than listening to Troll Blood Scrum, which is an amazing cast, please use
Yep.
your Battle Reporter and your Battle Reporter tool. Correct, Jason? Anything
Correct.
else? Anything else we need to mention?
I had one last question from the chat for Chris.
Oh, bring it.
They want to know if you've given up on Chrissa.
Krissa, in my opinion, is the most boring Legion robot. I have played her. I played against her. Jake was playing her at the SOO
Yeah.
last year, I want to say, and I played her for Fraser's his stream at one point. There was like a listener request or whatever, so I played Krissa for that, and I played a few games to practice before the event. She is boring, in my opinion. She's got a really good feat and then just a boring spell list. There's so much opportunity there. Like, she could be really interesting without being overpowered. Just like, I feel like she should do something for Legionnaires because she's a Legionnaire. Even if she just had like martial discipline for Legionnaires, like that would be interesting. Like, she has that spell that lets her move like velocity or whatever.
Yep.
But like, why? Like, what does she do with that spell? She can run to a flag 12 inches, or she can blow her entire stack to move 12 inches to the flag. Like, it doesn't make sense. So I don't know. She's just a very like odd caster. She's one of those casters that feels like unfinished.
Yeah.
But I don't think they'll end up updating her anytime soon because she's in the starter box.
Yeah,
You don't
she's a
want to
battle box
change
caster.
an introductory caster. Like, you don't want a brand new player to open up starter box, have this warlock, and then everyone that when they go to actually play in a store be like, no, she doesn't work that like that anymore. She's
Yeah.
You need
else.
you need to spend another at least $300 to make her work.
That's a bad like new player experience.
Yeah,
So, like,
for
I
sure.
don't think she'll be fixed. I don't think she was meant to be super competitive when they released her. She's meant
No.
to be like inside that battle box, like just the little battle box. She's actually super competitive when compared to the other ones.
Yeah.
Like that little bolt thrower, you just keep the models away and then you kill them with it.
All right, couple of finish off works. I want to thank the people from Use on Minis for keeping us on the air and making sure that you all get to hear our podcast. And Chris, I believe, happy birthday.
Yeah.
Yes, that was yesterday.
Happy
Thank you.
birthday.
Happy birthday to you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, Chris, for joining us tonight, giving us your insight, giving us the play-by-play. I love the podcast where we just don't talk. We just nod our
Oh,
heads.
it's awesome.
Because we're like, yeah. That's,
It's really
you
I was
smart.
told it was too quiet last time. So
well when you have someone on who actually knows what they're talking about.
Yeah.
It's so refreshing and different from us.
Yeah. Different from us, not the rest of our
No,
guests.
no, from us.
Us specifically, yeah.
All right, guys. Any last notes before we go? George, is there anything going on?
If
in the
you're
area?
in the local area, Out of the Box this weekend, there's a tournament on Saturday. It does have the George's Trunk Jank. So as soon as you
I
lose,
don't want to see.
as soon as you
Trunk
lose
jank.
a
Junk in
round,
your trunk
there
jank.
are going to be 3 tournament bags sitting there with tournament lists in them. You can roll a D3, pick one, and you have to play it for at least one round.
Oh, interesting. Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, no
For
problem.
running the board, keeping the chat happy. It looked like a busy chat tonight.
Fraser would like to remind us that there's also a UK version of Troll Blood Scrum.
Oh yes,
If you prefer British accents,
Yes.
that's the way to go.
which all of us do.
Yes.
It makes us sound smaller.
Chris, before we go, any cool events going on in your area?
There's a tournament at Black Knight coming up on the 19th of May. I think that's the only one I think there's a blind doubles event one of the next 2 weekends at X Planet. Unfortunately, I'm working that weekend, so I'll not be able to attend, but that sounds like it's going to be fun.
Sweet. All right, everybody. That's it for us. Jason, hit that button.
Dice down.
Moose Machine and This Death Clock Has 60 Minutes is a proud part of the Muse on Minis network. Podcasts go online every Thursday morning. You can watch the show live every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on Twitch and keep in touch with us on our Facebook page. Just Google Moose Machine. If you can't find us, you're doing the internet wrong.
That's awesome. He just fucking bailed.
Chris just